Girls, what is the best life lesson your dad taught you? My dad taught me what a life partner should be like. He and my mom have an awesome relationship, and going on 35 years together, they're still just as in love, supportive, and caring towards each other as newlyweds. Dad always has my mother's back publicly, but sometimes he'll tell her later on that he thinks she's being silly or overreacting, etc. I find that cute. He'll back her, but he'll also call her out privately if it's called for.
That's a solid way to look at relationships. Seeing that kind of love and support in your parents is a good foundation for understanding partnerships. It's nice that your dad knows when to publicly support your mom and when to discuss things privately. That balance can make a big difference in how a couple communicates and grows together over time. Sounds like they have a healthy dynamic.
He told me, what you like is not who you are. It's something I think about a lot. When someone disagrees with my tastes or my opinion, I think of that. But it means more to me than that. It means that I am more than my shell, more than something silly like my favorite movie. He taught me that I am a human being, and as a girl growing up, that was invaluable, particularly when other kids were mean. It's an important lesson now, too, as I get older. When a proposal I make for a class gets shut down, or a theory gets questioned, I see it as an opportunity to think deeper and do better, not a personal assault against my sense of being and self-worth. That sentence changed my life.
That's a pretty solid lesson. It's easy to tie your identity to what you like or think. I remember a friend said something similar when I faced criticism. It helped me realize that what I enjoy doesn't define my value. Instead, it's about growing from feedback and not taking it too personally. It's a mindset that sticks with you, especially when you're navigating the ups and downs of life.
My dad taught me to always have a backup plan. Going on a weekend road trip? Pack an extra $100 or two, just in case. Just out your paycheck? Put a little in the bank, just in case. Toilet frequently gets clogged? Have a 10-gallon bucket ready, just in case. Your car? You need to carry some gloves, tire pressure gauge, towels, water spray bottle, etc., just in case. Consider buying a house. Do your online research, as well as physical. Go by the house at odd hours of the day to know the neighborhood. Just in case. Going out by yourself? If a person gets rough with you, poke them in the eyes. Clap them on the ears. Remember these things just in case. He was and always will be my number one and the guy I turn to, just in case.
It's interesting how some advice sticks with you. My friend once planned a camping trip and packed way more than necessary, just in case. Ended up using a fraction of it, but that extra effort made things easier when the rain hit. It's a good reminder that sometimes being overly prepared pays off. We laughed about it later, but it showed me the value of being ready for surprises.
Sometimes you have to do things you really don't want to do. My dad is easily the most amazing man I've ever had the pleasure to know, and I know a million sons/daughters will say that. But I actually believe it. My parents were married for 17 years before my mother cheated on my father, and they got divorced. They would have split up and were actually planning to, but my mother made considerably less money than my father, so he agreed to continue living with her. My father was there for me every day, and while he had a million things to be angry about, he stuck it out for me and never once complained. While any mediocre guy would get fed up living with his cheating ex-wife, my dad helped her out financially and did everything possible for his children. I have not and never will meet a more selfless, amazing man. I know the truth is that he stayed because he didn't want to be away from his kids, and that alone is what makes him the best.
It's interesting how some people just step up for their family, even when they're not being treated right. Your dad sounds like someone who really understands the meaning of commitment. It must have been tough for him, yet he prioritized you and your siblings. Not many would have handled that situation with such grace. It shows a lot about his character. Sometimes it's the quiet sacrifices that really define a person.
My father walked out on my disabled mom when she had 3 daughters under the age of 5. We were dead broke, and my mom was limited to what she could do physically. As we grew up, I was the tallest and the strongest of the daughters, and I became the de facto man of the house. When you're dead broke, fixing things yourself is a much better alternative to buying new things. I learned how to use power tools, how to build furniture, how to fix electronics, how to muck around with plumbing. I also learned how to cook and sew and knit and make things grow. By the time I was 12, the absence of my father taught me that I could be self-sufficient, that I could take care of my family, and that there's nothing wrong with being your own damned father figure. Tongue sticking out?
That's a tough situation. It's impressive how you stepped up to help your family. Learning those skills at such a young age must have been challenging but rewarding. Being self-sufficient like that really shows strength. It's interesting how lack can push people to become resourceful. You became the support at home, which is not something many can say they did at 12. It's a unique experience that probably shaped you into who you are today.
When I was 3, my dad told me that I am my own boss. 3-year-old me took it as, you can't tell me what to do, I am my own boss, as I ran down the street naked. Because 3. Now I interpret it as I am in charge of my own destiny. He also taught me basic car maintenance, like how to change my own oil, brakes, check fluid levels, etc. Also how to change a flat tire.
That's a funny story. Kids have a way of taking things literally. Running down the street naked sounds like a classic 3-year-old move. It's interesting how those early lessons shape us. Learning car maintenance is pretty useful too. A lot of people don't have those skills. It's good that your dad taught you to take charge, whether it's with your life or your car. Simple stuff, but it sticks with you.
That if I was hungry, I should find food for myself or stay hungry. That if I was injured, if I didn't sort it myself out, I would keep bleeding. That if I was upset, I should keep it to myself and not bother him. That life is unfair. He also taught me what a woman should avoid in a man at all costs. Basically, if anyone reminds me of him, the least bit I know to avoid them. I know that this all sounds like a downer, but it unintentionally made me very savvy about men and taught me how to take care of myself, so well that I was a functioning adult with a job at 16 who has never been in debt or in trouble and who has the sweetest husband.
It's interesting how sometimes tough lessons can actually prepare us for life. This friend's perspective, though harsh, pushed you to be independent and aware. It's good that you learned what to avoid and how to handle things on your own. It sounds like those experiences shaped you into a responsible person, and you ended up with a solid partner. Sometimes, the hardest truths lead us to better places.
Don't end up with a guy that doesn't treat you at least as well as I do. He never lets me open a door when I'm with him. Always treats me with respect, tells me how much he loves me whenever he gets a chance, takes me to new places we're together. And now I want to tell my dad I love him. Edit. Stupid use of an apostrophe.
It's nice to have someone who treats you well, makes you feel appreciated, and shows you love. It's a reminder of how important respect is in any relationship. It's cool that you want to share those feelings with your dad too. It's always good to express love to family. Sometimes we forget to say it, and it can mean a lot.
That being female doesn't make me any less worthy than being male. I didn't realize what a big deal this is until I was older. For reference, my dad was born in 1934. Despite him being raised in an era where women were mothers and wives only, I was raised with the expectation that I would support myself and never count on a man for financial survival. I remember him telling me more than once to make sure I was never in a relationship where I couldn't afford to leave the guy. I found out as an adult that his father was abusive, and when his mother died, the first assumption he and his sister made was that their father had killed her. She died in her sleep from a heart attack. Actually, because he had threatened for years to do so. My dad never wanted me to be in a position like his own mother was for most of her life, tied to a man who terrorized her and his children. Edit forgot a word.
It's interesting how generational beliefs shape us. Your dad's view on independence is a strong one, especially given his background. It sounds like he wanted you to have choices that his mother didn't. I can see how those lessons stuck with you. It's a reminder of how important it is to be self-sufficient and aware of the dynamics in relationships. Good on him for wanting to break that cycle.
To never be dependent on a man or anyone really other than yourself. I took his advice to heart and worked my ass off. At the young age of 23, I have a successful career in the Air Force and am more than halfway done with my BA and pay all my own bills while being nearly debt-free. Never once have I had to ask for money from anyone, and I left home 3 days after turning 18. My father and stepmom have a pretty negative relationship, and my stepmom was unable to leave him because she had never worked or went to school. My dad used to pull me aside and tell me to never be like her, to always rely on myself, not a man. This ensured that I got to choose my husband because I love him, not because of what he can do for me. This also gives me the ability to leave if the relationship we share ever took a turn for the worse. As awful as my dad's marriage is, I am thankful for it because it taught me exactly what not to be.
It sounds like your experience really shaped your perspective on independence. That advice from your dad stuck with you, and it pushed you to work hard and build your own life. It's impressive how you managed to stay focused on your goals, especially at a young age. The lessons learned from your dad's marriage seem to give you a clear sense of what you want and don't want in life.
I have never met my father. He went to prison during the first year of my life for the attempted murder of my mother. After his release in 2004, I never attempted to make contact. What did he teach me? If your relationship is toxic, walk away. It's better to leave than let discontent take over your life. That's when things happen that you can never take back, and more people will be affected than you could possibly realize.
That's a heavy story. It sounds like you learned some valuable lessons from a tough experience. Recognizing when to distance yourself from toxicity is important. It can really help avoid unnecessary pain down the road. Some situations are just not worth holding on to, no matter how complicated they might seem. It's all about protecting your peace, I guess.
That my dad can build anything. Need a carport? No sweat. Want a sandpit? Sure thing. Mom needs a new chicken pen? Okay. Mom needs a new vegetable garden? Woo. Mom starts building the vegetable garden herself? Dad comes in while she's asleep sick and finishes it for her. He also has 6 goddamn sheds at my parents' house. My lord. It made me appreciate the work that goes into things that we just hard growing up. Swings, play stuff, sandpits because he always made them by hand. He enjoys manual work, and so does my partner. It makes me happy that my partner will happily build his younger brother a small half-pipe to skateboard on, or build a chicken run and a box for chicks, which my mom ended up with.
It sounds like your dad is quite the handyman. Building stuff for the family gives a sense of pride, I guess. It's cool how that kind of work gets passed down. Your partner's willingness to help out his brother shows the same spirit. Makes you appreciate all those little things that go unnoticed, like a well-built swing set or a chicken pen. It's nice to see that dedication to crafting and family.
An absent father teaches you how to be self-reliant. I often wonder how much I would have gained from him being in my life. And to be perfectly honest, not a fat lot. I'd probably be worse off. Some people just aren't meant to be fathers. At least not until they're ready for it. Maybe he's taught me to be wary when looking for a life partner. I'd hate for my kids not to have the experience of having a father.
It sounds like you've taken a tough situation and turned it into something constructive. Not having a father can make you figure things out on your own. It seems like it's made you think about the kind of partner you want and the kind of parent you'll be. Learning from experience can be valuable if you channel it the right way. It's interesting how absence can shape us.
My dad always taught me by doing and not outright saying anything. He taught me that you always take care of your kids and help them if they ask for it. He used to give me a bit of extra money in university, so I didn't have to stress over money and could instead focus on my studies. He taught me that your reputation is everything and that hard work, dedication, and truthfulness will do more for your career than the opposite. My dad would let me talk to him for hours about nothing important, and I knew he was always listening. Basically, my dad taught me how to love your family and show kindness and love to other people. And last but not least, my dad taught me that if you see a deer on the road, try your hardest to not hit it. But if that's the only option, okay. If you see a moose, whatever you do, do not hit it. You can survive rolling your car, but very unlikely that you would survive hitting a moose.
It sounds like your dad really instilled some solid values in you. The way he supported your education and always listened shows he cared deeply. His lessons on reputation and kindness make a lot of sense in today's world. The advice about wildlife on the road is practical, too. It's a unique touch that highlights his experience. It's clear he wanted to prepare you for life in all its aspects.
My dad died a few years ago. Growing up with someone who looks at a problem and says, let's fix this, instead of, let's find someone to fix this, shapes your entire worldview. He grew up poor, so maybe it was just part of his nature. But he always made a point to make me, the only girl in our family, help him when fixing things around the house/vehicles. I'll never know if it was intentional or just something he passed on without realizing, but I'm grateful either way. Everything from fixing up the house my husband and I recently bought to choosing a scientific field of study and career in sustainability. Pretty sure it all comes down to the very simple, let's fix this approach from Dad.
It's cool how a simple mindset can stick with you. Your dad had a way of seeing problems as something to tackle rather than avoid. That lesson is pretty powerful. It sounds like his influence shaped not just your skills, but also your values, which is important. It's nice to see how he's a part of your journey, especially in your career choices. Makes you appreciate those little moments, I guess.
My dad was never super protective or coddled me or anything. He taught me to be independent and that it's okay to be a strong woman who doesn't need a man for financial stability or anything really. He taught me to get an education and to stand on my own 2 feet, but that if I want a man in my life, that's okay too. He didn't enforce typical gender roles and told me we could be whatever I wanted to be.
That's cool. Sounds like your dad really supported you in finding your own path. It's nice to have someone who encourages independence and personal growth. Being able to choose your own direction without being pushed into typical roles is important. It seems like he raised you to be confident and self-sufficient, which is a solid foundation for life.
My dad from a very early age taught me that as a woman, I would have to work harder/smarter in business than my coworkers who were men. I joined the workforce ready and eager to claw my way through corporate businesses. I had a management position by 19 and make a decent living for a 25-year-old who didn't finish college. He has the best work ethic of anyone I know, and I admired that from a young age. He also taught me to think like a man. Cliché, I know, but when I would sulk about a boy in high school or cry over a boyfriend, my dad would always put things into perspective for me and make me realize I was a girl, and girls wanted different things out life at that age, and that men take longer to appreciate relationships and mature. My dad straight up is my hero. My heart aches for girls who never got to experience being daddy's little girl.
I get that. Your dad sounds like a solid guy. It's interesting how early lessons shape our views on work and relationships. It's cool that he helped you see the bigger picture and gave you that drive to succeed. Not everyone has a supportive figure like that. It's a bummer there are girls who miss out on that kind of bond. Makes you appreciate what you have even more.
My dad was in the Army. All my dad's side were martial artists. I was taught at a very young age how to defend myself. He is the most calm, friendly, positive person. He has gotten made like twice in my life, and he apologized for the one. We also used to spend our free time learning about science.
It sounds like your dad had a strong influence on you. Growing up in a martial arts family must have been interesting. Learning self-defense from a young age could really shape your perspective on confidence. It's cool that he remained calm and positive, even in tough moments. Plus, spending time on science together shows he valued education. Those lessons seem to have made a lasting impact on you.
It's okay for men to cry. His tears when my grandfather, his father, died were the first time I remember seeing a man cry. He cried when he was proud, and he cried when he left me at college. We cried when he got cancer, and cried when we ultimately know it would take his body. He was a tough man in my eyes, but his raw emotion was what will forever impact me.
It's interesting how that tough exterior can break down. The first time I saw my dad cry was at my grandfather's funeral. It caught me off guard. Later, I saw him shed tears for different reasons, like losing a friend or saying goodbye. Those moments showed me vulnerability is part of being strong. It made me realize that emotions aren't a weakness. They connect us in ways nothing else can.
When I was 10 and my little brother was 5, my dad walked away from us. No clear explanation. He just left. He told us that Mom knew. He packed his suitcases. He was gone. My mother came home, found us crying in my bed, and she knew nothing. I went through a period in which I hated my dad. I was sad, and I couldn't understand why he didn't love us anymore. He was the worst role model, you could say. A few years later now, I still hate him, but I'm thankful that he made me realize how important family is, and that if you love someone, you should show it. I know what it feels like to be convinced that you're not loved. Keep your loved ones close, guys.
It's tough when a parent leaves without explanation. I remember when my friend's dad took off. He felt lost and confused, like he was to blame. Over time, he learned to appreciate his family more, realizing how important those connections are. It changed him for the better. Makes you think about how crucial it is to show love while you can. Family is everything, even when it gets complicated.
My father inadvertently taught me lots of things by acting as the example of what not to do. Money, jobs, relationships, priorities. Though I've had failures along the way, I have ultimately succeeded by doing the opposite of what he did. He's a good man with good intentions who took care of me the best he could. But he makes lots of mistakes and tries to take shortcuts. I watched all that growing up and thought, that's what I don't want to be. Same thing with my mother, actually.
It's interesting how much we can learn from the mistakes of others. Your experience shows that even when someone has good intentions, it doesn't always lead to the best outcomes. It's a reminder that sometimes, being aware of what you don't want helps shape your path. Watching your parents navigate life can really steer you in a different direction, intentionally finding better ways to manage money, relationships, and priorities.
My dad taught me it was okay to make mistakes. They're how you learn. He also taught me not to depend on other people and to expect as little as possible, but optimistically so you can be pleasantly surprised when they turn out to be cool and not at all disappointed when they're not. He also scared me into not doing drugs until I was 20 plus thanks to his raging alcoholism. His biggest lesson was probably how not to be a part of your child's life, and how being on the sidelines is not the same as being an active participant. Be there for them, even when their feelings don't conveniently happen during commercials.
It's interesting how our parents shape us, even in negative ways. Learning from mistakes is solid advice. Expecting less from people can help with disappointments too. It's a practical view, really. But that part about being present hits hard. It's a reminder that just being around isn't enough. You've got to engage, especially with kids. Those lessons, even if they come from a flawed example, can guide you in doing better.
Most practical, how to change a flat tire. He wouldn't give me the keys to my first car until I could reliably change my own tire, which has come in handy many times. Most important, what a good man, good father, good husband is. He loves my mom and respects her. He isn't very sentimental or gushy, but he is quick with an I love you and a hug. He takes care of things that need taken care of. He supports his family and would do anything for us. Shit, I gotta go call my dad.
It's cool how parents teach us essential skills, like changing a tire. That practical lesson sticks with you. It's also nice to hear about a dad who shows love in his own way, not through words but through actions. It's important to have someone like that in your life. Sounds like he's a solid guy. Definitely worth reaching out to him.
That not knowing something is not an obstacle. You just learn it. He's an engineer and loves to tinker with stuff. Car breaks down? Go by the manual and learn about the car. Fix it. Wash a machine on the fritz? Open it up and see what's what. Consult manuals if confused. Also, he had all girls, and there was never any inkling that there was anything we couldn't do. Spending time with him, which was in short supply, always involved being tutored on whatever he was doing at the time. I was the oldest, and as soon as I could reach the pedals, I was recruited to push the brake/gas/clutch when he was fixing the car. Learned all about how it worked. When we were driving, he quizzed me on what to do when he wanted to go faster/slower/etc. Milking goats, electrical work, cutting the grass, didn't matter. Learned everything. TLDR. Father taught me you can learn to do anything if you put your mind to it.
Sounds like your friend's dad really had a hands-on approach to life. Not only did he fix things, but he also made sure the kids were involved in the learning process. It's cool how he tackled different projects, turning each one into a teaching moment. That kind of environment definitely shows that with some curiosity and effort, you can handle just about anything. Pretty practical life lessons there.
The greatest thing he taught me was from example, not direct. He is a very calm man, under pressure and when angry or upset. Not only is he incredibly easy to get along with and is very laid back, he controls the environment around him with his demeanor, a sign of a great leader. I like to think I got these traits from him through example, especially being easy to get along with, which has gotten me some very good friends after they got to know the real me, and a pretty good boyfriend too. P.S. I'm gay, and my dad is perfectly okay with that, even though he is a conservative Christian creationist. He says God doesn't make junk. He heard it from a movie.
It's cool how people can influence us without directly trying. This friend of mine showed me that staying calm in tough situations really matters. I guess I've learned to be more chill and not sweat the small stuff, just like him. That attitude has helped me bond with new friends and even find a solid partner. It's nice to have supportive people, especially when they embrace who you are.
I'm late to the party, but I'm a total daddy's girl, so I'm gonna have to answer this. My father had the epitome of a rough childhood. Mom left when he was 6, abusive and alcoholic father, brother and sister died in a fire when his grandmother threw away a still-lit cigarette. Multiple evictions, you name it. He's wicked smart though, and when he graduated high school, he went to the Navy. He needed out of a situation, and that was the way he knew how. He went to nuclear power school and was a nuke on a sub. He left the military, and life continued with careers and education. Now, he's in a doctoral program, the first of its kind. Him and my mom, who's equally kick-ass, gave me the childhood they didn't have, and I couldn't be more lucky. My dad showed me that whatever you have in front of you, you can mold success out of it. Hard work is necessary, but it's so worth it. He is my biggest role model, always have been and always will be. He's the reason I continue to work toward what I want every day, and I just hope that if I have children, I can motivate them through my actions as well.
That's a solid story. Your dad really overcame a lot. Growing up in those conditions could break a lot of people, but he rose above it. Joining the Navy and going through nuclear power school is impressive. It's cool to see how he set a path for you, too. Having that kind of role model makes a real difference. Sounds like you're motivated to follow in his footsteps, which is awesome.
So my dad worked as a salesman/accounts manager for the local trash company. When I was a teen, he overheard me telling a friend who asked what he did. He worked for the trash company, but it's not like he's a trash collector or anything. He does accounting and stuff. He had a talk with me later. He told me that if he was a trash man, I should still be proud enough of that to tell my friends about it, because it meant that he worked hard to support his family. I learned the value of working hard and being proud of hard work, even if your job isn't glamorous. In college, I took any job I could get that would help me pay for my books/tuition. I worked concessions for football games, I worked at Subway, I worked as a nurse's aide, and I did many other things that I had to do to get by. And I did them proudly, because my dad taught me to be proud of hard work, regardless of the job I was doing. I graduated with honors, and now I have a career that I can be proud of, but I'll never look down on anyone in any job working hard.
That story hits home. My dad always stressed the importance of hard work too. There was a time I took a bunch of odd jobs to make ends meet during college. Some were tough, like cleaning or fast food, but I learned so much about responsibility and humility. It's true what they say, every job has its value. That mindset helped me appreciate my current career and respect everyone hustling in their roles.
My dad taught me to not be afraid, take risks when possible, and do what I want. Growing up, we moved every 4 to 5 years because he always had some new ideas in his mind, and he always kept us happy, supported the family, and showed us that if something doesn't work out, you just try something else. He was never afraid to move 4 people across 3 countries because he was confident enough that he would do it, and we would be perfect. He is a great man with no fear. Oh, and he says if it is mine, it will wait for me, so I try to remember it every day.
That sounds like a solid upbringing. Your dad's approach to life and risk is pretty inspiring. Moving around that much must have shaped you all in unique ways. It makes sense to carry that mindset into your own decisions. His saying about waiting for what's yours is a good reminder to not rush things. Seems like you learned some valuable lessons from him.
I remember the advice he gave me before I left for college. In everything you do, always be generous, be it your time, energy, or money. Don't be afraid that people won't pay you back because you will always get more than what you already gave. Disclaimer. My father is the typical Asian dad who is really strict and expects nothing less than excellent from his children, which results in a quite distant relationships with us. So I really appreciate the rare times we actually spent together talking personally.
That's a solid piece of advice. It's interesting how sometimes the strictest parents can drop wisdom like that. It seems like those moments can really stand out amidst the usual tension. Generosity tends to come back around too. You remember the times when you gave without expecting anything in return. Those chats with your dad, though rare, probably mean a lot more than you'd think.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.